Hotipu everyone. Today I wish to discuss a very hot and a very important conversation about sexuality and spirituality. There's a lot of hate going around in the black Kemetic community, among many black gay spiritual conscious groups, what's called the conscious black community, about homosexuality, about gayness, and heterosexuality. And what I wanted to do was to discuss this topic very briefly from a point of view of math. I want to look at heterosexuality, sexuality, homosexuality from a math point of view because the word for math is ma'at, where the word mathematics, mathematikos, comes from. So I want to pull it out of this hot topic, incendiary kind of realm into a calm, rational, thoughtful one. On the screen here, you see two male lions having sex. And there is the female laying aside them. They're completely ignoring her. She's ignoring them. What's going on here? How do you explain this if you are in the conscious community? I've heard many people in the black conscious community that these are aberrant animals or they've been trained or some weird things. It's always some kind of weird analysis that's not data-based, research-based, fact-finding based. And what intrigues me is how many people in the conscious, so-called conscious black community are so aggressive about checking your facts, getting resources, looking up sources, doing your homework. They're so clean and excellent to a very high degree when it comes to looking at the research about Egypt and the black accomplishments of the Africans. They will back up everything they say with really astounding scholarship. But it falls apart mysteriously and magically all of a sudden when it comes to the gay question. They start talking about, is homosexuality part of Egypt? Is it part of Africa? Did it come from the white man in Europe? They start what I call pontificating, logorrhea, diarrhea of the mouth, without any research. They don't research, are there cultures in Africa where gay was part of their indigenous culture? Do they exist? If so, what were their names? What do they call these people? What were their roles? What were their functions? They don't come to the table with any kind of level of scholarship that they express for proving the blackness of Africa. So it's an odd hypocrisy to me, where on one hand, they are Mr. and Mrs. Scholarship, fact-finding, source gatherers, and then when it comes to gayness, it's just sloppy scholarship, opinions, a lot of loud logorrhea, and it really makes them lose respect as historians, as researchers. So they need to explain from their point of view what is going on in this picture, what's happening here. Because the premise I'm making is that is if it's in nature, then is it natural? If it's in organic nature, meaning not really influenced by human hands, but does this happen organically in natural environments? Would that make it natural? So if these lions weren't lobotomized or shock therapied or something to make them quote unquote gay here, if they're just natural lions in their natural habitats, is this a natural scene? Well, if it's natural, it must come from neteru, because the word nature, neteru, has the root nature in it. So, to me, this is natural. This is nature in her natural state. And I have here a link to a video called Out in Nature that shows many, many animals that do this. It's not just these lions, these very alpha male lions. So let's stick to the facts. If you're going to be scientific about researching Kemet and that the blacks built the pyramids, and all of that. Maintain your scholastic skills in this department, because you'll be shocked to find there are many indigenous, terrorized, pre colonial African nations that had gays in their community, much like many Native Americans did, where they had a sacred role. So until you research that, discuss it, fact find, do your homework, stop being what you are, which is prejudiced, ignorant, and mean. That does not help anyone. Okay, so let's get to the facts of math here. Okay, so we have this screen that here in front of you. We have the number line 0, and then we have the blue numbers 1, 2, 7, 8, 9, 10. We won't discuss the negative numbers because the red to blue numbers, the positive negative, deal with race relations. That's more of international dynamics, international politics. For our purposes here, we're going to focus only on 0 and these numbers in blue. So there is a text called The Creation of the World, and it says here the creator is called by several names: Nebuchadnezzar, Lord of the World, Lord of the Limits, and he also calls himself Kepra, and he later calls himself Temu or Atum. So different names for the creator. But the key here is that in this text of the creation of the universe, it says here, I, even I, had union with my clenched hand. That's called masturbation. I joined myself in an embrace through masturbation with my shadow, my subtle body. Then I poured my seed into my own mouth, and then sent forth issue in the form of Shu and Tefnut. I hear many people in the conscious black community say, well, you can't have life without a woman. You have to have the female. Okay, that is true for many forms of reproduction. But in this text, it says he poured the seed not into a vagina, but into my own mouth. In fact, some may argue, well, this word here, re, looks like a vagina. Well, if we stick to the facts of what we're looking at, the evidence, this word re has a male, that's a man with a beard. So it's clearly a male reference, not a female organ, not a female reference. So explain this to me, conscious black community. What's going on here? How is creation of the universe in our most ancient holy text of Genesis describing creation, making of life from a male? That's what it's saying. I'm not making this up. I'm reading what the text is telling me. I'm not adding or subtracting from what I'm seeing. I'm seeing a male masturbating and swallowing his semen into his own mouth. There's a second version of this called version B, where the hand of Atum, the hand of the creator that he uses to masturbate with, is called Iwasas, which is a goddess's name. But that's in the second version of creation. What's going on? This first version of creation talks about creation in the mental world, the creation of archetypes, the creation of patterns, of the mental patterns that back and control all things in the universe. Version B, I'll try to flip if I can quickly to it. Here it is, version B. It's a whole other section here where he describes his hand somewhere here. He describes his hand as his wife, Iwasas. So we have two versions, version B and version A. Okay, what's going on? Version A is creation in the mental world, the ideas behind creation, the archetypes, the principles behind nature. Version B deals more with the now consequent physical creation of forms in nature. First, you must think about what you want to create, then you must create it. If you're going to make a pot from clay, first you think about the pot you want to make, then you make it. So this text, which has no female as the source of Shu and Tefnut, which are then male and female, Shu is male, Tefnut is definitely female. Before that, there was no female written in the text. What's going on there? What's going on with those two lions? What's happening? Does this make heterosexual, conscious community people uncomfortable? Are they going to maintain their same objective scholarship levels in the face of this evidence? Or will they release their prejudice? A thing they accuse many, many white scholars of doing about Afrocentrism, being very biased and bigoted and prejudiced. Well, they're doing the same thing to the gay community. Okay, now, they may say, oh, well, this is not saying that Atum is gay. I didn't say that. I'm saying that it is not binary sexual reproduction. It's not even sexual reproduction. It's mental creation. Version B is more the physical sexual reproduction side. Now, the word atum or tem means no, not, nothing, complete, finished, whole, all, has all these connotations. One could say in one word they mean zero, because zero here is the origin, tem, the beginning, tem. It is all numbers come from it, are based upon it, relate to it. Okay, so tem would be zero. So how did zero go from 0 to 1? There's no reproduction here that we can call sexual reproduction. There's some kind of other force happening here, what we call androgynous creation. Some call a form of parthenogenetic creation. Creation from the zero. It's a mystery. We don't really know how it happened. It's a very mysterious transition. We have ideas, but the exact dynamics are mysterious, and it links a lot to fractions, things between whole numbers. Okay, so now, with that said, I'm establishing that 0 in creation version A, which is Temu or Atum, represents the gatekeepers. Gatekeepers are the gay citizens of Egypt. These people, like Native Americans say for their gay people, are very high spiritual beings. The function of gatekeepers is to maintain the mysteries of 0, of Atum's creation from nothing, Atum's creation from his own sexual power. Gay, I want to be careful with the word gay. I don't really mean gay. I'll say it because that's the word people know. Gatekeeper is what we are. Gay is more modern, kind of watered down version of gatekeeper. Gay focuses more as a word on a sexual act and a culture built around that sexual act. Gatekeeper is an African-based concept that's not strictly based upon your sexuality. It's more of a spiritual appellation, a kind of spiritual citizen. It's called a gatekeeper. To qualify, you have to like your own gender sexually. That is the first signal, of course, that you're a gatekeeper. But we don't really define gatekeeping as a culture of what we call gay culture. It's more gates, which is about spiritual centers, opening up like chakras in your body or power points in the earth or in the heavens, in the astrology system. Gatekeepers are these people that maintain the peace. 0 means peace, not moving, still. Nirvana, Hatep, Tai Chi, Wu Chi, okay? All of these phrases of 0 or peace, calmness. We maintain the calmness, the power of calm in heaven, earth, and in between. We keep each gate, each chakra, each telluric line, each meridian, each ley line of the earth. We maintain its hatep, its zero, its peace. When you take, let's say you have in your hand a pen, you throw it up in the air, what happens? It falls to the ground and stops moving. Gravity returns it to a still state. We call it the zero state. It tries to go back to zero, its origin. Its origin. Now, then let's say the numbers, the blue numbers, are binary sexuality. So we have all the odd numbers, 1, 3, 5, 7, 9 would be the male numbers, and the 2, 4, 6, 8, 10s, even numbers, would be the females. So we call the blue odd numbers the males, men, and we call heterosexual men, I should say, and we call the even numbers heterosexual females. So the gays maintain zero, the gatekeepers, I should say, and then we have heterosexuals, man, hetero male, hetero woman, hetero man, hetero woman, and it goes on, and they reproduce ad infinitum. Okay. So let's say we have here 1 is a heterosexual male and 2 is his heterosexual female. We love them. Our mothers were heterosexual females and our fathers were heterosexual males. That's how we got here. They had to perform heterosexual activities for us to be born as gatekeepers. So we as gatekeepers have no problem with heterosexuals. We understand the fullness of the forest, that every creature, every being, every entity in the forest has its function, including us. And I, as the king of gatekeepers, will not allow the heterosexual bashing in the conscious black gay community to continue unchecked. I push back to protect my own because the venom, the bigotry, the closed-mindedness of the conscious gay, the conscious black community, the Kemetic community, is damaging to both sides, sloppy scholarship, mean-spirited, and hurtful to the larger cause. Because many keep saying, well, we don't need gay people in the movement. Oh, really? Perhaps you should ask Bayard Rustin, who helped Martin Luther King. We have a huge role in the history of the liberation of black people, and I will not tolerate any community bashing my ancestors, my gatekeeping ancestors. It's going to stop now. So, but let's say we follow the heterosexual, what I call two brain cell way of thinking. It's either left or right, hot or cold. They can't get a binary ping pong. They can't get into subtlety when it comes to sexuality, but they can become subtle when it comes to black scholarship versus white scholarship. They're very subtle then all of a sudden. Mysteriously, magically, they lose that power. But let me help them out. 0 to 1. Okay, then 1 to 2. So let's do 1 to 2. The brother and his sister, his female mate. So the binary thinking of heterosexuals likes to keep things black and white, hot and cold, very strict categories. One is a male, I'm all male, he says, and she goes, well, I'm all woman, and we should get together and make a baby. Okay, but let's look at that a little more carefully. What is between 1 and 2? Is it a closed system of just 1 and just 2? Well, let's ask math, Ma'at, the queen of math. So here we have a number line. So let's take this little line between 1 and 2. Let's make it bigger here. Here's 0 and 1. Okay. Let's replace 0 with 1. And this could be 2. Doesn't matter. The idea is the same. But what I'm getting at is that between this 1 and 2 are fractions. There's 1/2 between 1 and 2. So if 1 is a male, like a macho male, and 2 is a very feminine female, then what's 1/2? What is that? What is that? Is that all male, half female? What is that? Explain it to us. Okay. Maybe it's even more fluid. 1/3 and 2/3. Well, what kind of man is that? What's a 1/3 male and a 2/3 male? Okay, it might even get more interesting. Now we have divided into fourths. Okay, so what's a one-fourth sexual male, a two-fourths sexual male, and a three-fourths sexuality in manhood? Oh my heavens, look, one fifth, two fifths, three fifths, fourth, and look, one sixth, and it gets more and more detailed, more subtle, more fluid. Could this, dividing into twelfths, it's telling you within what we call manliness, at this level, and I can go on infinitely, 1/12th, 1/13th, 1/876,000th, 1 over 1,442,000. I can go on. Between these little tick mark, this little tick mark between 1 and 2 is an infinite number of fractal divisions. That means there are gradations, there are subtleties. Some men, heterosexual men, are one. That's it. They're just macho heterosexual types. Then some are a half. Some are a third. Some are a fourth. Some are a sixth. So how do you account for that? What does that mean? I'm telling you, it means it's got variations in it. It's not fixed. Not all heterosexual men are macho heterosexual. Some are heteroflexible. They're not what we call gay. They're heterosexual, but they're flexible. Then some are bisexual. This is the truth of how it works. This is the truth of human history, which includes Africa because they're made of humans. Then you have women who may be totally heterosexual females, and then some who are heteroflexible, and then some who are bisexual. And there are fractions in between inside that box. If you want to call maleness the number one, box mark number one, well, in there are infinite number of fractions. So I can zoom in infinitely between any two vertical tick marks. This is a function called chaos dynamics, chaos mathematics, which says once you have creation, you see zero is infinitely boundless. What's called a boundless infinity. Zero means boundless infinity in fractals. Anything that comes after zero is also infinite, but it's called a bound infinity, meaning you can keep cutting it into smaller fractions. That's what they call fractals, meaning fraction. You can cut any unit into an infinite number of tinier subfractal units. This is shown in this image. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 circles with the hexagram star in it. Okay, but then we take each of the arms of the hexagram star, we make another hexagram on each arm. And then the tiny little one in here, we could do the same thing, make a little circle hexagram in there. And then zoom in, ever tinier divisions of fractions, going into quantum levels of tininess. You see? I know many heterosexual men who have slept with men, but they're heterosexual. I know gay men who have slept with women, and they're gay. We're not defining your sexuality by who you sleep with. We're not in Europe or Eurasia here. This is what the Africans say. That what makes you who you are sexually is a spiritual conversation, not a physical acts conversation. Heterosexual males are called half spirits. Heterosexual females are called full spirits. Gatekeepers, male and female, are called all spirits because we are the zero guardian. We guard zero, atum. From zero, we can become anything. The closest thing to gatekeeper in modern gay culture would be drag queens. I mean specifically drag queens. Men who dress as women, meaning they have a form, but they bend it. They play with it. They say, I'm not this form. I can become another form. They're going from male body to zero state of consciousness of possibility, and then coming out on the other side looking like a female. They're bending so you don't get stuck in your box of what you call sexuality. Because according to Ma'at, mathematics, the number line, even machismo can have gradations. There are videos, I should have put a link on this video here, of homosexual behavior in sports. There are some fantastic YouTube videos, really quite revealing, of so-called macho men, and I'm sure many of them are macho heterosexual men, but they do these subtle subconscious things oftentimes in the euphoria of victory on the sports fields that to any person watching it would be very what we call homoerotic. Because even these straight brothers, when they have this victorious, joyous, ebullient feeling of victory on the field with their fellow men, these fractions start kicking on, where their sexuality becomes subtle. It begins bending and warping, going into quantum soup. You see, these whole numbers are like solid. They're solid. 1 is 1 and 2 is 2. But between each number is this quantum soup where it's possibilities. If you know about quantum physics, beneath the level of the atom and the protons, there's this lower level, deeper level called the quantum soup level, where it's not exact things, it's possibilities. It's like a flux. So when these brothers are on the field in euphoric victory dancing, they kiss each other, they grab each other's penises, and they hump each other, and they do all kinds of things, which to anyone looking will look very homoerotic. What I'm saying is, maybe they're a closeted gatekeeper, maybe they're just heterosexual, playing with the quantum fractions of their sexuality, which says, you know what, it's not always so fixed. It's a quantum soup. I can be maybe during this victory dance when I kiss this other man on his lips and hold his face while I do so. Maybe I'm a macho man dipping down into the quantum soup of, okay, maybe I'm 4/5 hetero today at this moment. Not quite fully. It's a bit fluxing. And I feel this is what frightens homophobes so much, is the quantum world. This world that's not solid, not written in stone. And many heterosexual men fear this division of their number line, these numbers hiding in there. But it's important that they should not fear this, because it's when the tiny numbers build up what's called critical mass. They build, they create a whole number. And this fraction is very important because the phi ratio is a fraction. 3.1, I'm sorry, pi is 3.14. Phi is 1.618. These very creative forces of nature, the pi ratio, the phi ratio, the golden spiral, are not whole number phenomena. It's fractional. It's dipping into the quantum field of fractions, and that's what makes life. You see? And I feel many heterophobic people fear the quantum world that's really slippery. It's not solid ground. It's a very mysterious, very magical place. Fractions are a very magical function of Ma'at. And when Ma'at or math wants to create at levels of splendor unrivaled, it taps into fractions, quantum soup levels of math. Also, I want to remind everyone that each number, 1, 10, infinity, can't exclude 0 from their definition. So 1 says, I'm 1. I'm the number 1. My identity is number 1. And 4 says, well, my number, I'm 4. I'm 4-ness. Well, I'm 8-ness. Well, I'm 6-ness. So that's their identity. But let's be clear, that's only half the identity. Because what is 3? It is 3 spaces from 0. So 3 can only define itself holistically by itself and its 0 origin. 3 means I'm 3 steps away from my origin of 0. So I'm really 0 plus 3. 7. 7 is not just 7. That's half the equation. 7 means the 7th place from 0. So I'm 0 plus 7 places. When you add 0, you don't lose your 7-ness. If heterosexual men are 1, or heterosexual men are the number 3, let's say, 3 means not 3 in isolation. 3 is 3 units from 0. So it's 0 plus 3 jumps. That's why I have frogs, jumps. You've got to jump from somewhere to land there. So if 0 is androgynous, 3 would be a kind of male, heterosexual male. He's both androgynous and he's male. He's both androgynous and he's heterosexual. Both are happening at the same time. You see, this is why you need gatekeeper priests. Because we keep things fair. We keep things balanced. We stay with the facts. Heterosexual macho men like to forget about fractions, fractional sexuality, fractional machismo, and they want to forget about 0, the androgynous source, the atum power. And just say, I'm just a 3 all by myself, just a macho 3 standing tall, pounding my chest. No, you're not. You're 3 with a bunch of fractions in you, and you're 3 from 0. Now, once heterosexual macho men, and the black conscious gay community in particular, that's my interest in particular, tell the ma'at about their ma'at. Tell the ma'at truth about their ma'atikos, their math. Then they'll find they come into a greater balance. They come into a deeper peace. Because 0 is the number of peace, calmness, stillness, what we call hotep, hotepu, hotepu. Everyone says in each community, hotepu, hotepu, hotepu. But they aren't doing hotepu. Hotepu is 0. If a thing is not moving, no motion, no activity, it must be 0, still, stasis. 0 never moves. All the other numbers are moving. 0 is static, stasis, stationary, homogeneous. So we have the 0 homogeneous state, and then the female, male, female, male, female. It's all good. There's room for all of us on the number line. It's only the small-minded heterosexual fools that can't look at this number line with the same level of intellect that they bring to black Afrocentric studies. This is Kepera, the Lord of Fractals. He is the Lord that says, he's the creator. In fact, we have that line here. He says here, Keperfe Nukpu Kepera. This is the creator God. Okay? But if we go back to the image here a little clearer, Kepera is shown here as a beetle. But look at his shell. His carapace looks like the human skull. And look, it's got a Y shape in there, which is the glyph in Egyptian for pillar of heaven. There were 4 pillars that shape exactly like this Y, which are said to be the 4 pillars holding up the sky at the 4 cardinal directions, north, south, east, west. But if you were to go on Google Images and look at the human cranium, it looks exactly like this. It's got this Y-shaped sutures in the skull plates. This is the human skull. It's telling you, the human mind must think in 3s, not 2s. Not in binary, but in trinal. We have the singularity, one line, and it bifurcates into left and right. We have the 0 singularity, it becomes male-female. So that means there are 3. There's an androgynous, a male, and a female. This is how you should think, because your skull is shaped in this 3-pronged geometry. Gatekeepers remind the Kamau to think in three, not two, because two means two parts of some whole. Two means opposites within some unit. So that's 3 points, right? Three dynamics: a unit, a whole, and its dipole. So if we have male and female, what's the unit that binds them? What's the circle that binds them? This takes me to a different conversation about the ratio of pi, which is the radius of a circle. You have a circle called a whole. You divide it into two hemispheres with a line across the middle. So you have a left and a right point. So you have a line that touches the left and right point of the circle. That's called pi. That's the diameter of the circle, which is equal to 3.14. Meaning you took that diameter in the middle that you drew. If you took the circle that's around the diameter, okay, the radius is 3.14. It'll be 3 arcs of the circle plus 0.14, a fraction more. Okay? So when you have opposites, male, female, in a circle, it creates a diameter which generates a fraction, which is the quantum soup, the not so solid, the what's called irrational numbers. To me, there's quantum numbers, soupy numbers. Okay? So that is the core of what I wish to speak about today on this topic. We end with our image. Things aren't as 1 to 2 and 2 to 3, as clean cut cookie cutter boxes as many heterosexual people in the conscious gay community would like to think. This image shows you there's something else happening here. There's some other formula, some other kind of math, ma'at, happening in this natural scene. And if it happens in nature, if we have homosexual lions or bisexual lions, whatever to call them, then it must be natural. There's a natural place for gay men in nature, in the number line, in ma'at. And I come forth with this video to protect my young gatekeeper, young boys and girls, from the venom of many of these loudmouth heterosexual conscious community people who are doing sloppy thinking, irresponsible talking, and poor scholarship on this topic. I encourage all wise heterosexuals to research what I am saying, to study it with respect and dignity, and then come out with your view. Best you do so you don't look foolish any further, looking bigoted and violent. Because who knows, maybe your children will come out gatekeepers, you loudmouth, heterosexual machismo. And there are many women in the black gay community who are very, very, what I call hetero insecure. I don't call it homophobic, I call it hetero insecure. Maybe your children will come out as the gifted gatekeepers. So I'm actually helping you too. Or maybe you have family. Or maybe you're a little bit flexible and are afraid or embarrassed to say it in the black conscious gay community, which is really becoming violently hetero insecure, what some call homophobic. But what I have learned over the years is when someone screams loudly, what's the phrase? I thinketh thou doth protesteth too much. Whenever someone is really, I hate gays and I hate homosexuals, and oh my God, they're ruining the country, they're ruining the black movement, they're ruining the ancestors. When you get that upset over something, I think there's more than meets the eye going on inside of you. I think you're more fractional than you like to admit. Just watch the videos on homoerotic activities in sports, and you'll see what I'm talking about. There are these moments when heterosexual machismo men slip into those fractions of homoeroticism. And I'm sure all those heterosexual males in the conscious gay community absolutely cannot stand when women have sex together. Isn't that right? Some of them are polyamorous or they have polygamy. They have more than one wife. And I'm sure because they're so staunch against anything gay, they would never ever want to even watch their porn, their wives, their girlfriends perform any sexual acts on each other, since they're so homophobic. Homosexuality is so evil. That must include women on women sex. So I'm certain that if we had a reality TV camera, a real world Big Brother camera on your private life, when your two beautiful wives want to kiss or do what's called gay type of activities, you say, stop. That's not my art. That goes against my art. I will not tolerate it. Right, gentlemen? So, let's keep it real. Let's keep it to my art. Let's keep it to the truth. So, I pray you enjoyed this. The role of a gay king, a gatekeeper king, is to protect and nourish his people. I protect my gatekeepers, the gays and lesbians as they are called in modern times. With this video, I hopefully tried to enlighten some heterosexuals who think that it's all locked in boxes when in fact they're fractional soups between sexual fluidities. And I leave it to them now to explain this picture on the screen from a nature point of view. Watch the video out in nature and use that and explain those other scenes of penguins and dolphins and buffalo, all kinds of animals performing what they call gay acts. Explain it to me. I'm all ears. I look forward to hearing from you all, and gatekeepers, stay proud, stay strong, and let no one bully you around. Push back. In the end, by the grace of Nectar, Supreme Being, we will all be brothers and sisters, no matter where you fall on the number line. We are all brothers and sisters. Dwawen Hotepu.